record holder for the most yards ever passing in a single game, Rohan Davey. Emmitt Smith joins us in studio.
It's the first time I played in such a place that had that much noise.
Jock, throw a rock and you'll hit a three-star cornerback in Louisiana.
Chuck Oliver is a popular voice when it comes to college football across the country, especially in the South. You can catch his show in over 70 markets, including Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Chuck is nice enough to join us now. Chuck, good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, man. I appreciate you asking me. Thank you.
Yeah, well, just a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into this? Were you a coach? Were you a player? What drew you to college football?
Well, I played, but in high school, and that's where I found my ceiling of incompetence. And so after that, I went to Auburn, but it really was for journalism and had a partial scholarship, had money there. And so was at Auburn and wanted to get involved. So I tried various routes, and one of them was the campus radio station. Hosted the 4:45 afternoon sports report brought to you by Auburn Exotic Fish. We didn't have any commercials, but we were allowed to have a sponsor because it was campus radio station. So mine was Auburn Exotic Fish. And after Auburn, I had changed to English and literature and education. And so I was a high school English teacher and a football coach. And that led into, I went back to my writing roots, wrote a couple of books, a bunch of freelance magazine stuff and all that. And so that's how I was making my living. And then a local sports talk station had a contest in Atlanta and said, we want to find Atlanta's most knowledgeable college football fan. And I was like, well, they've got refreshments there. So, all right, let's see how this goes. And so I showed up and I wound up kind of advancing and then wound up winning the thing. And it was supposed to be for the 2000 football season. And after the football season was over, they were like, why don't you just keep showing up? So now it's 2025. I just keep showing up. That's kind of how it went.
Awesome. And so now you're based in Atlanta, correct?
Yeah, we're based in Atlanta. The flagship here is at the Battery, the baseball stadium where the Braves play. We're the Braves flagship. So they've got like 150 stations that the Braves are on, and they're real good at building networks. And so right now we're in 9 states and 71 stations, I believe, ourselves. And so that's what I do every day.
Awesome. Well, I don't know where to start with LSU, Chuck. There is so much going on here between who's the head coach, who's the athletic director. The president has been named. We have a governor that's been very active in things. Just from afar, how have you viewed the situation at LSU?
I would have to ask the best that you can interpret, and because you would know Jeff Landry and his, approach is a lot better than I. Is he about what's right or who's right?
Yeah.
Is he about what's the best for LSU or by God, I'm in charge here?
Yeah. Well, I want to be careful myself.
I'm sure. I saw a vote went 12-1 to approve the new president. And my first reaction was, I don't want to be the one.
Yeah.
I really don't want to be the one that voted against it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like that the governor and the athletic director were never on the same page. It starts with Republican, Democrat. And then there were some things reported about the men's basketball coach and what Jeff Landry wanted to do there and what Scott Woodward did not want to do there. And there's, I'd been hearing for months that, hey, Scott Woodward may not be on as solid ground as what a lot of people might think. And it just really came to a head after the firing of Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I thought it crystallized, actually. People said, tough room, man, tough, situation for Scott Woodward. And I said, well, you're right about that. But I was like, it's actually a pretty clear message to athletic directors at programs such as LSU, because he hired a national championship baseball coach. He hired a national championship women's hoops coach. Basketball was just really had some serious issues headlines wise. And, you start to rebound that program. There was a lot of good that Scott Woodward did, and he still got whacked. And so it sends a very clear message that if you're a program such as LSU, you better keep your football right, because if football ain't right, then you may not be around if that's your responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at it, Chuck. Can you fire him on performance? That's a question, I guess, that people have. As you've mentioned, Jay Johnson's won 2 national championships in 3 years here. Kim Mulkey is an all-timer who's won 4 national championships
Yep.
total. She wins one in her second year here. People like Kim Mulkey don't leave jobs where they've been over 20 plus years at the age of 60 to get a new job. That just doesn't happen typically, but she did it. And then they promoted Jay Clark Gymnastics to be the head
Can I
coach.
say one other thing? Brian Kelly was supposed to work. Like, I would be
Yeah.
snarky when people would ask me, LSU fans that I know, are we going to win a national championship with this guy? And I would be kind of funny. I was like, you won a national title with Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. Yeah, you're going to win one with Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
And I was way, way wrong about that. Part of now, I don't know that it matters at this point, and I don't like taking swings at guys on their way out the door, but I don't really think that's what this is. Okay, I think there's education, there's value, and why didn't it work? Because it really was supposed to be a great Scott Wilbur, big game hunter, circle back around, took the Notre Dame coach. My understanding is that Brian Kelly actually changed, that the guy that was hired, that's not who LSU had, certainly not in this final season, that he had. I mean, all he was missing was that tower in Tuscaloosa, that he had become CEO, coach from on high. And that ain't what a kid from Bessemer, Alabama or Lake Charles, or like that ain't what a kid wants, you know?
Right.
So my understanding is that was part of it. And I tell you what is bad for LSU and this team is that Brian Kelly's a pretty good coach. So if he's got that, I'm just going to delegate everything and be the CEO. Who's winning national championships right now? There's only 2 types of head coaches, the CEOs or the play callers, the guy with a play sheet. It's Ryan Day, isn't it? It's Kirby Smart, isn't it? It's a bunch of play callers right now. We're not the CEO age anymore. And Brian Kelly had sort of retreated to that CEO, and that's not what's winning titles. And at LSU, God bless you, you won 8. The quarterback got a Heisman. Like, all of this stuff is great, but LSU is supposed to be about championships.
Well, Chuck, can 2 things be true? Can it be a good hire that just didn't work? I mean, at the time, he was the most accomplished coach LSU has ever hired. I mean, Les Miles was 28-21 overall at Oklahoma State. The job just elevated him to a new place, and you know, he recruited. And that 2011 team was far away from the Nick Saban days and the Nick Saban players, and it's one of the greatest teams of all time. They just didn't win a national title because they lost to Saban in Alabama in the national title game. Ed Orgeron, intense recruiter, I think his record at Ole Miss was 10-25 or something like that. You would not look at this guy and say, he's the guy that's going to lead LSU to a 15-0 season and the greatest team of all time, but it happened. And Nick Saban and LSU, I think, were the perfect marriage. They elevated this thing together. So Brian Kelly's got to be looking at that saying, well, if those, like you said, if those 2 guys can do it, I can do it. But he just wasn't a grinder, right? And look, if he would have gone 10-2, Chuck, every year, or 11-1 and made playoffs and made it to a national championship and won one, we wouldn't be talking about this. But he just never seemed interested in engaging with the Louisiana people, getting to know them better, trying to connect, trying to, you know, that just didn't interest him.
And by the way, too bad for them. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, New Orleans in particular, there's not much better living than that, man. And so bad on him for not really embracing that. Did you see this past summer? Maybe, I'm sure you reported on it. He had a PR coach and wanted a public relations makeover. He hired a firm. Did you see that story?
You talking about before he came here from Notre Dame or this past summer?
No, this past summer. This past summer, Brian Kelly hired a PR firm to help him with his public makeup.
Mm-hmm.
He hired a firm out of Washington, D.C. I'm like, no, you missed the point, Brian.
Yeah.
Go to New Orleans, go to Houston, go to Mobile. Like that, go get a PR help there. He missed the whole point of why he would want to do that. Here's the thing, though. If I was AD, if you were AD, Scott Woodward was AD, that's one of the 2 or 3 names that we all would have hired. And so here's how I evaluate, because like a GM in baseball or, you know, like a draft specialist in the NFL, what was your process like? And the process that Woodward went through last time to hire the coach, that's a good process.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very short list of names. They were all the top of the profession. And I even went back a second time and said, no, you the guy at Notre Dame who's already said no. We want another audience. And then he got him. And I was like, the process was right. And then Brian Kelly as coach didn't work. And so
Yeah.
Sports is a bottom line thing. I know that we evaluate, and it's the cool part. It's one of the few places in our lives where we have a black and white outcome, no
Hmm.
nuance to it a lot of times. However, there's nuance in the job that you do. And Scott Woodward, while he didn't get the bottom line results in this sport, which matters more than the others, the process was right. And so I knew this had to be, like on the pie graph, it had to be like 83% personal and 17%. Okay, now we have a reason that we can pin it on. And so that's how I viewed it with Scott Woodward. I think somebody is going to get a good athletic director at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then when Kelly came here, I want to, compliment him on he gave us more access in the media than any coach I've covered from, going all the way back to Jerry DiNardo, Nick Saban, Les Miles at Ogeron. He let us go to a lot of practice and see a lot of stuff and have a decent idea of who could play and who couldn't and whatnot. And I did 3 one-on-one interviews with him. He was cordial. I thought he gave good answers at press conferences. He was a lot nicer than the guy I'd seen from afar at Notre Dame. And, he came down here. He lost some weight, Chuck. He would dress nice. I think he did try to go over a bit of a makeover and try to, at least to an extent, say, hey, I'm a little nicer than that guy maybe you thought from afar was that, ornery.
Was yelling at the media in the Notre Dame press conference.
Yes. What'd you say? I think I heard you.
Yeah, that he was yelling at that guy in the Notre Dame press conference.
Yeah.
That guy.
That guy. Right. Yeah. Well, my dad would say, I'd see that guy. He yells at the quarterbacks. He screams and yells. It's like, well, Nick Saban does that too. And then when some people say, well, Nick Saban's got the skins on the wall, I'm like, well, you realize Nick Saban did yell at people before he won the first national title when he was 52.
He did that at Michigan State, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it didn't work. But Chuck, I guess the next guy here, they just need to understand the opportunity. I mean, look, we're in Baton Rouge, so maybe we have purple and gold glasses on, but how good of a job do you think the LSU job is?
I think it's the best available. And it is sort of shoulder to shoulder blade, maybe, with Florida, Auburn, certainly, Penn State. If you say it depends on what your measuring sticks are. I look at it as overall picture, all the metrics. Now, I'm going to just skip to the bottom line one. Here's the reason that Virginia Tech's a great job. And did James Franklin, is he taking that? Is that what the word is? That
I have not paid attention, Chuck. I'm sorry.
It's not official, but James Franklin may take that job.
Uh-huh.
UCLA is a good job for a reason if you be crass and bottom line and say that if I'm going to get a 5-year contract at even $4.5 million a year with a 75% payoff, like Deshaun Foster, UCLA was a good job for him to have. He worked as a year and a half and got paid for about 4. So monetary and bottom line wise, we all know the truth. All right, now let's get back into the competitor, and it's more than the money because it really is going to be more than that. Ability to win, ability to attract blue chip recruits, size of the stadium, size of the fan base, size of the donors, whatever. LSU maxes out on almost every single one of these metrics. There is one, though, and I mean, it's like a giant coffee table in the middle of a room. I can't figure out how to get around it. LSU, I think, is the number one example of how we spend in our $20.5 million, because every school in the SEC, certainly you have football, and then you have, like, Mississippi State has baseball. Like, they got to spend on baseball. Georgia has gymnastics, or like everybody has that thing that they spend on. Arkansas would be track or whatever. LSU's got like 7 of those. And when I saw that the rough number was 15 million for football, and then we'll just spend like 75 and then 25 for everything else, I saw, now at LSU, we're going to do a little different. Instead of a 15 million, maybe like 14.1. And I was like, I know that $900,000 is kind of a rounding error in the SEC, but still, like, I don't scrimp on football in the SEC. And then, especially if I'm LSU, that's the one thing I look at, because there are sports at LSU that they're just great at, and by God, we're spending on it. And I think there are more of those at LSU than at your typical campus. All right, besides that, it's got everything, man. You're going to get paid. You've got the stadium. You've got fans that they're as good for like their specific reasons as you can find. I don't know. I like stuff that doesn't even matter. I like the double bar goalpost. I like that the fives get numbers and not just the tens. Like there are little things like that that matter to me. I've literally sat a little uncomfortable, but I've sat at a tailgate for like 6 hours staring at a sign that said alligators are in this lake. Be careful. Like that's not normal behavior. You better be having a good time to do that. That's LSU to me. And here's another thing. I used to live in the South, and I'm not trying to be funny here. Did you see the Georgia Tech athletic director last year, Jay Batt? They had hired him from Alabama when they whacked Stansbury about 3 years ago. They hired the guy, the assistant at Alabama. He left Atlanta to go to Michigan State. I was like, I have to live in Ann Arbor. I don't get to live in the South or in Atlanta anymore. But here's the thing. I got to the Big Ten. This is not a power four. This is a power two. After about the 2029 or 2030 season, we're going to have a whole new divide in college football, and it's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC. Jay Batt left as AD at Georgia Tech because he immediately got into the Big Ten. Jonathan Smith, the head coach at Oregon State, he left because, okay, now I'm in the Big Ten. There are about 4 or 5 more seats on this boat, and they're going to get filled by North Carolina and like some predictable teams. Well, LSU's already in the boat. Penn State's already in the boat. Florida's in. So there's a lot of these teams that you look at and go, okay, there's a positive to them. Every one of them. Local recruiting, which still does matter in high school. Louisiana per capita, holy smokes. You look at like the fans who care and will spend money. Just so many things about the LSU job, the traditional measuring sticks that aren't quite as important LSU was great at, even the new stuff when they figured out name, image, likeness. So I think LSU, by a lot of metrics, it is the number one job that I want. And a big part of it, again, like I said, you're already in the SEC.
Yeah. Well, as we're sitting here now, LSU has not officially named Verge Ausberry the athletic director. I think that would help because if you are a guy, if I'm going to work for Chuck Oliver, I want to know I'm working for Chuck Oliver. And Chuck's not saying, well, I'm here for a couple months, but you may be working for somebody else, right? I mean, Nick Saban would never take a job if he didn't know who he was working for or working with. So I think they need to get that stability, right? And I guess the names too, Chuck. I mean, you know, the people LSU's hired over the years, I don't want to say they've come out of nowhere, but oftentimes, no matter what the sport, it's not people we're talking about. I don't think we talked a whole lot about Jay Johnson when he got the baseball job. I know we didn't talk much about Brian Kelly when he got the football job. And I know, you know, when Orgeron got the job, we were talking about Tom Herman and some other people. That didn't work out. And I think Les Miles was kind of talked about, but he was a bit out of left field too. So
there's been a lot more conversation about the guys who didn't get the job. Tom Herman, Jimbo. Yes. There was always a lot more conversation about the guys who weren't hired.
That's correct. That's correct. And so, I mean, when Kelly got the job, there was a lot of Kiffin talk, but there was a lot of he's immature. They need a more mature guy, maybe an older guy. Napier was an hour down the road, had done things at UL Lafayette that nobody else has ever done, but there was always talk that LSU would not hire the coach of the Raging Cajuns, and I don't even think they talked to him. You know, big game hunter, like you said, Scott Woodward's not hiring the coach from the Raging Cajuns. I'm trying to think who else was in the conversation at the time, but so now Kiffin seems to be, you know, the obvious guy that a lot of people want, but he's making $9 million a year at Ole Miss. So how much would you have to pay him to come here? 14?
See, I've already heard. Well, first of all, I'll take this in chunks. My initial guess, and then my understanding. Oh yeah, you're right. Is a big part of the timing was the second half of that Texas A&M game. A big part of the timing was, by God, we're jumping to the front of the Lane Kiffin line. You mentioned 14 million. I've heard Florida is going full bore. We won't lose him because of money. And so I heard 13 and a half from Florida.
Okay.
What does Lane Kiffin want? Well, I hate to say this because I am an Auburn grad, but here's what's supposed to be true 100 times out of 100. Auburn shows up in Oxford with a check. We're here for your coach. They leave with your coach if they're Auburn and you're Ole Miss. That didn't happen. Now, when I say I hate to say this, it's because Lane in part passed on Auburn because of the reputation of we have crazy boosters. Everybody has crazy boosters. We have a reputation of a little bit more involved, perhaps. a little bit more influential and a little less of a leash, and like what all kinds of stuff there. That some true, some not. Some of it a lot like other programs. Some of it, yeah, we're guilty. But Lane passed. He stayed at Ole Miss, and so that shows me that he could stay at Ole Miss, as you referenced. LSU's a better job. If he has a chance to leave Ole Miss, I say it's a better job, and that there will be debate there. Here's where it's not a better job, not a debate. Brent Key. You're not in the Big Ten or the SEC. You're at Georgia Tech. Everybody has to take calculus. I mean, there are 15 different reasons that I would rather be the head coach at LSU than Georgia Tech. And here's the one reason he would rather be at Georgia Tech. I went there and graduated 25 years ago. Every other reason is I want to be at LSU compared to Georgia Tech. I'm interested and you mentioned Verge as it's not official yet. I really want to know who's making the call, because then I can kind of maybe handicap their history, their brain work. In most cases, we hire the opposite. We hired a defensive guy. Now we're going to hire an offensive guy. We hired a CEO. Now it's going to be hands-on. We hired a hard ass. Now we're going to hire a players coach. I wonder how they're going to go there. A lot of times they just simply do the opposite. Brent Key is as old. I'll tell you one thing. You won't have offensive line problems anymore. I can promise you that if you hire Brent Key. And he learned at the feet of the master, of course, Nick Saban. So he's a popular choice as well.
Well, Verge has a son who's a linebacker on the Notre Dame team, Jaden. You just mentioned go the opposite, okay? I don't think 60 years old is old, but Kelly is an older white man. Marcus Freeman is a younger black man. LSU's never had a black head coach in a permanent role. But Marcus Freeman was a hero to Notre Dame and the players. Hey, this guy stepped in to be our dad, so to speak, when our other guy abandoned us to go to LSU. We love you type thing, right? So could he do that? Could he stomach leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU? My gut tells me he wouldn't do that, but I don't know. I don't know the guy at all. So
he would take the call as a courtesy, because you can't tell, you got his kid. You have to go through that as a courtesy. You can't just hang up the phone or even, nah, I'm not interested, man. You have a steak, or you have, I don't know, wings and beer. You do whatever Verge and Marcus are up for. And then you say, I had to ask. And Marcus was like, yeah, I know you had to ask. And then you part ways. And I think people will understand that. Now, message board crazies don't want to understand that. But I think most reasonable people would understand when you got your kid involved, because that's where we is. I saw Vince and Barbara Dooley. Barbara Dooley, one of the best Southern ladies you ever meet. I saw Vince and Barbara Dooley sitting in the stands in Knoxville wearing orange because their kid was the coach.
Yeah.
That's just what you do. So that would carry a lot of weight, obviously. But Marcus Freeman's not going to leave Notre Dame.
Now, you're an Auburn guy, right?
Graduate. Yep. Proof that Auburn grads get jobs.
Did you go to the earthquake game in '88?
As a matter of fact, yes, in Baton Rouge, and the 3 4th down conversions and back of the end zone in the final minute.
Yeah,
that was a crushing night, man.
Tommy Hodson, Eddie Fuller, y'all were 4th in the country. Only lost that year for Auburn, right? 10-1.
Yeah, and I remember thinking this is the only place I've ever seen the invocation booed. Do they still do pregame prayer at LSU games?
They do the alma mater, the national anthem. I feel like the prayer is maybe going away. Don't quote me on that. I have to see. I'm not sure.
Well, in 1988, dear Lord, and I was like, start the game. I was like, they're serious here. They really are serious in Baton Rouge.
Wow, what a crazy series. And I don't want to get off track, but real quick, that's one thing I don't like about the new SEC scheduling, because I love going to Auburn Jordan-Hare Stadium. I think that's the essence of college football.
Oh, yeah.
Small town. 90,000 seat stadium, I always like going there, and LSU hasn't gone there recently because of the scheduling, but that'll come back around again in this new format. So
yeah, so many wonderful games there. Was it Bird with the pass that Les Miles threw for the touchdown that he really could have just taken the field goal?
This was LSU Auburn at Auburn.
No, this was at Tiger Stadium.
Oh yeah, 2007, Demetrius Byrd. Yeah, and Chuck, real quick, we've got that on video, obviously, and my guy's in the end zone shooting it. And if you go frame by frame, I don't know how the football magically passes through the back of the defensive back into the hands of Byrd. It's wild.
Unbelievable. And I was like, the dude just needed a field goal. That game, the game that got less fire because of the clock, like that half second, and like so many wonderful moments in the LSU Auburn series in '04 where the rule had been changed because of Nick Saban about extra points and being able to, and so
Yes.
Auburn got an extra shot at the PAT. So many wonderful moments. And I mean, I'm glad that we get to play Kentucky twice every 4 years. That's great, I guess. But I'd rather play LSU 4 out of 4 years.
You know what I remember? This is a stupid thing I remember about that 2016 game, that Les Miles' last game, was that sweet little girl on the end zone who tried to catch the football and it hit her smack in the face.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And I went and I chatted with her after. I got a picture of her. She was okay, but that was one of those viral crazy moments that happened. But John Summerall, the Tulane head coach. So this is kind of, some people simplistically will call him Billy Napier 2.0. He's doing well at a smaller school. But the guys that I know in the New Orleans media who cover this guy say he's the real deal. And if you don't hire him, somebody else is going to. So what are your thoughts on Summerall?
Can I ask you? You can clarify. Give me another opinion here. I hear that unless your first digit of your age is a 6, you don't really hate Tulane if you're an LSU guy. Is that true?
Yeah,
is that just an older person's?
Yeah, that they were a big rival, 50s, 60s, 70s. I mean, I believe when LSU went to the Orange Bowl in '83, they beat Florida State. That was the famous game in which fans threw oranges onto the field.
Yeah,
and
they did.
The next week, LSU lost to Tulane in Tiger Stadium.
Yep.
So I think that's the last time LSU lost to Tulane, but certainly I remember going to games. I went to a game in 1987 in the Superdome. Mark Zeno, Terrence Jones.
Oh,
Almost beat
wow.
LSU.
Zeno, wide receiver. Yeah, he got in the league for a minute there. But see, Tulane, along with Georgia Tech, making the worst financial decision in the history of college football and leaving the SEC in the mid-'60s. I think 65 and maybe 66 they did that.
Yeah.
Tulane, if you go to old school LSU folks, they don't want anything to do with Tulane. I don't know that current leadership would have that. We just had a president get appointed there from McNeese State, for gosh sakes. And so there are a lot of Jeffersons. They're moving on up in the state. And so anybody from Tulane, John Summerall is belle of the ball. He could get hired there. He's actually a Huntsville guy. So that's the connection that some people have to Auburn there. But honestly, Auburn, as good as a program, as great as a program and product on field as Auburn has been most of our lives, I think LSU right now, I want to say Florida, Penn State, like Auburn is supposed to be kind of king daddy when it comes to an off-season job search. And the past 2, that has not been the case. And so it's not going to be the case this time either. They got to compete like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, he'd be easy to get in the moment. I don't think Tulane's going to make the playoff. You don't have to worry about that.
No.
You can get your coach in place and move forward with your recruiting and your staff maybe and some of those things. But this is a long-term decision. It's supposed to be, not a short-term decision. So Drinkwitz at Missouri, he kind of looks like a character from The Office, but apparently a pretty brilliant guy and pretty impressive coach. Would you say that Columbia, Missouri is not an easy place to win?
Yeah, there are no players there. There's like 1 5-star in the state, maybe every other year. And when it happens, Oklahoma's like, we'll take it. Ohio State, Bama, everybody was like, all right, we know the way to Missouri. Here's the thing, though. He's been getting those 5-stars. Like he lost the kid, Jackson Cantwell, that 5-star tackle that Miami paid apparently like $2.5 million for. Well, Eli was like, we can't pay $2.5 million for a high school senior tackle, so we're going to pass on that one. But the 5-stars otherwise, he's been getting them. He has been hiring well to replace guys who leave. He had a DC just bolt for the NFL because he didn't want to deal with name, image, likeness. At least that's the story. Eli's done a whole lot, and as you correctly, you're not untoward regarding that program. It's not a great program. It hasn't been historically. I've been there. I remember walking in thinking it's like an SEC stadium, only smaller. It was just a nice place, and they're making it big, and it's a sweet crib, man. And they're bringing back the Rock M. I mean, it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
It's still Missouri, and if LSU or Auburn, where he's coached before, or Florida, any of those kaboom. That stage compared
Yeah.
to where he is now, you have to take that job if you're Eli.
Yeah. Columbia, Missouri, beautiful in the fall, then the winter comes around and it doesn't end. So
No, absolutely. So
harder to recruit young kids to go to school there. I remember LSU baseball played a game up there in April and it was snowing. There was a snowstorm on the Sunday game.
and if I'm the Florida coach, I got palm trees in my yard.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, climate.
That's a win.
I mean, that's what I used to hear about Notre Dame. They would fool the recruits. They take them up there in the spring and and then kind of, hey, then you're up there in the winter. It's like this is miserable up here.
This was not what I was sold. Yeah. So
yeah. I want to go to school at USC. I want to go to school at
Miami,
Florida, Miami.
Yeah.
Climate. Let's see who else is out there that we should maybe talk about in this coaching search and is it harder for you, Chuck? It's harder for me to evaluate who is a good coach and who's not in this new transfer portal NIL, because in the past I could tell, or I thought I could, but then in this new era, a guy like Mike Gundy gets left behind. A guy like Dabo Sweeney has had his struggles when in the past he was upper echelon guy. So I sometimes wonder, okay, are they getting the proper support to go along with their coaching background?
You mentioned Mike Gundy there. It's funny because I know that Oklahoma State and Utah, myself included, the two programs that we all seem to look at and go, hey, when this Big 12 starts playing, this new Big 12, those are the two programs best set up to dominate every year. That didn't happen with Utah last year. They're a lot better this year, but that didn't happen last year. And with Oklahoma State, they've been as poor as any program in that conference. There was the thought that they have the most big-time experience and success coming in, and so they can dominate this conference. You have to understand the new portal era, and it's not just portal, it's name, image, likeness. It is player movement. It's what you're choosing to invest in. It's your attitude and how you're coaching the players. And I don't know another way to state that. Even Kirby is on his heels. Did you see Kirby, how he was trying to figure out how to deal with Carson Beck last year? Yeah. Like, if you saw him dealing with Stetson Bennett, he and Stetson would be at each other on the sidelines. I don't think you really talk to a quarterback that way now. Right. Especially one that I was with in Dallas at Media Days. And Carson Beck, I did not identify this as a problem, okay? But I saw him roll up, and he was coiffed, man. And he had on the suit, and he had on the watch. And I asked him about the Lambo, and he told me about the Mercedes first. And I was like, this kid is already playing for the Jets or the Chargers or the Vikings. And Kirby never figured out how to deal with him. But here's the key. Have so much talent, have such trust in the coaching staff that even in a season where Kirby was on his heels, never figured out his QB, the guy did not have the season they still won the Southeastern Conference. They still won the conference last year and made the playoffs. So that shows me the depth of the program and how that coaching staff, that's one I can trust. And that's what I've really been looking at since name, image, likeness really changed the game was, okay, the rosters are going to change every year. Who are the staffs I can trust? And you're right, Dabo, that has been a detriment to his program, his attitudes towards the portal and name, image, likeness. He's a great example of a guy who has not adjusted to this. Kenny Dillingham has not even had resources anywhere comparable to a program like Clemson. He has been able to embrace it and find crack the code a little bit.
Chuck, my cheap Zoom is going to run out in 5 minutes, so we'll end here. So there has been perhaps no person that I have talked about more in my life and that LSU fans have talked about more in their lives, especially somebody who was not coaching at LSU at the time, more than Nick Saban. He's a fascinating topic. The what if he would have stayed at LSU, the great joy he brought LSU fans, the great agony he brought LSU fans by standing in their way at Alabama. And he's 74 years old. It looks like I always wondered how he would transition into civilian life. It looks like he somehow has chilled out at this point. So, there's been discussion about, the dream of him coming back as a coach, the dream of him being an athletic director. It seems like maybe both of those are far-fetched. Verge Ausberry has said he doesn't think it'll happen, but it's fun for us to talk about.
It is, but it also was fun to watch Mike Tyson last December getting the ring again, because I was a senior in high school when he won his first title.
Yeah, good point.
And then reality hits you. And with Saban, here's the reality. The reality to me isn't he's too old. He is old, and it takes a lot more now to get it done.
Mhm.
That's not why I would say that he's unlikely or almost certainly he's not going to come back. I say he ain't coming back because 2024, I didn't see anybody in college football having as good a time as Nick Saban. I didn't see anybody across this sport digging the 24 season the way Saban did every single Saturday. And so he's having too good of a time. He really is. And he's doing a great job. He won the Emmy, didn't he? He was nominated, I know. I think he won it. The Home Depot stuff is just amazing. Did you see the birthday video where they walked in with the cake the other night?
That's the video I did see. Yes.
My gosh, where they have to tell him, sit up. And there's like 10 people in there. They've got a cake, candles blazing. And the whole time he was like, okay, I love all y'all, but Kansas City's in the red zone. Could y'all move? He's still Nick Saban, but he's just having a blast now. He's just real. And I'm happy for him. He earned it.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, Chuck, I appreciate your time today. Tell people where they can find you, listen, and so forth.
Yeah, well, we're on southernsportstoday.com is the website, and you can listen live there. You can get the Southern Sports Today app as well. But the Chuck Oliver Show, I host it 2 hours a day. It's live 11 to 1 every day. In Baton Rouge, 104.5 there, they carry it. We're on, like I said, 71 stations all across the Southeast. And so we're on a couple hours a day, and it's just a wonderful blessing.
Awesome. Chuck, thanks so much for your time, and we'll be listening and see you soon.